Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah, I'm a bit cold, hence I'm wearing like ridiculous number of jumpers.
Oh, leopard. Cheetah leopard.
Yes, and there's some pink in it as well. It's kind of pretty. But anyway, actually, I was going to wear my granny jumper, but then I remembered last time I wore that granny jumper on our show, and someone said I looked like their granny, so I decided against that one in the end. Right, so this one's going to be interesting, Yevgeny, because this is that day of the 2 days of the year where European summertime and the summertime daylight hours saving thing in the US are out of sync.
Hmm.
So we are live an hour later than we would usually be if you're in the US. So this may cause some challenges when it comes to people who might be confused about what time we are on today. So we'll see what happens, see if people start to pop in as the notification of going live appears in their notifications. But in the meantime, shall we do the intro? And we'll see if
Yes.
people rock up. Okay, I can't remember. Is it my turn or is it your turn?
I can't remember either. Do you want to toss a virtual coin?
Go on, toss it. um, I'll do it. I'll just do
No,
it.
I'm already here, so it's a pick. It's a pick. Heads or tails?
Okay, I'm gonna go for tails.
Tails. It's heads. So I think that's me, right?
That is you. Yeah, I chose
Oh,
tails, so it's
okay.
heads. That
Fine.
means it's you.
Yes, I did work at Amazon. I promise. Anyway, so folks. So Gigi, you probably know myself. We are day one careers. So both Gigi and I used to work at Amazon. We were both senior marketers. We were hiring managers, interviewers, and on top of everything else, also Gigi was a bar raiser. And if you've been following our channel closely, you know who the bar raiser is. She was probably the best bar raiser out there in Amazon. Unfortunately, I've never got to work with her. She never bar raised any of my loops, but I have heard many great things about her. So, um, both Gigi and I, at some point in time, started recognizing that interview coaching actually does have a positive effect on people progressing through the stages of Amazon interviews, and a lack of interview preparation and interview coaching tends to do the opposite effect. So, and we worked this out in different ways. Gigi, for example, started a YouTube channel while still being at Amazon, and then continued running this YouTube channel after she left. She is, by the way, the one and only Amazon interview whiz. You guys would know that that's who she is. And then when it comes to how I figured this out, so I started giving candidates a little bit of coaching actually during the interview process. So rather than, for example, rejecting someone after the first phone screen, I would give them a little bit of coaching and then progress them to the second phone screen and then see how they did in that second phone screen. And actually, even just from those little tiny experiments, I already understood that actually interview coaching and interview preparation can have a massive impact on your interview performance. Of course, assuming that you are actually qualified for the job and that you have a resume that fits what the hiring manager is looking for. And so at some point in time, one candidate that Gigi and I both ended up working with while running our separate businesses. So I also studied. I also started a business called Day One Careers. And so anyway, one person who worked with both of us told us, "You guys should meet up," and then we met up and decided to merge our businesses. So from Feb 2022, we operate under Day One Careers, and we run these free sessions for you guys every week. So that's pretty much it. Do you want to do the housekeeping?
Yeah, okay, I'll do the housekeeping. All right, so folks, the way this works, super simple. You can ask us any question you have, but there are some parameters. First is we are not experts in every single one of the functional areas of Amazon. There are, I reckon, over 10,000 different functional job families in Amazon, and no one or two or three or four or five or 10 or 20 individuals will know the deep functional information about every single one of those job families. So if you have a very functional question, i.e., what type of coding questions might I be asked as a BIE? I'm afraid we cannot help you there. But what we can help you on is the behavioral interview side of things, so the leadership principles. Every single role in Amazon is tested for the leadership principles, and they are asked exactly the same types of questions because they're interested in your leadership behaviors in this context, not necessarily your functional skills, and therefore they are agnostic of roles. So that's our area of expertise. So if you have any questions about the process or about the leadership principles and the types of questions you'll be asked, how long your answer should be, all that type of jazz, we can definitely help you with that. What we need you to do is just fill in your question in the little box on the right hand side of the page. If you're on YouTube, everyone's on YouTube for this stream. And then just hit the return button. There is a character limit. So if you discover that your question goes over the number of characters, just make it clear that this is one, and the next one is two, and the next one is three, and we'll work our way through all of those. If you have just a generic question, i.e., Gigi, I've got an interview tomorrow, can you give me any tips? Well, there's like hundreds of hours worth of tips on the YouTube channel. We obviously don't have time today to go through all of those. So I will just redirect you to the YouTube channel if you just have a generic question. So nothing overly specific when it comes to the functional, nothing overly generic when it comes to the overall interview process, anywhere in between, and we will probably be able to help you. So I think that's about it. As I mentioned earlier, we're out of sync with the US here in Europe. We have moved to daylight or out of daylight. Is it out of daylight savings or into daylight savings? I'm not sure.
Into DST.
Daylight savings, right. So we are now in GMT. So we're about an hour out as far as the US is concerned. So I'm assuming a whole bunch of people will have missed or thought that they've missed the session because they thought it happened an hour ago. So we'll see how many questions we have. We're here for potentially an hour, but if we don't need an hour, then we will all sign off early. So get asking your questions. I can already see there's a few there, and someone who got on here early and wrote an essay. So I guess in that Maromache maybe has put the effort into writing the essay. I guess we will follow through. So let's work our way through these, Yevgeny. I'll pick it and we'll just read them and work through.
And before you do that, sorry, we moved out of the daylight savings time. I was
Ah,
wrong.
right. Well, at least you admit it. All right, I have an AWS loop in 2 days and I'm facing a challenge with my story preparation. I've prepared 20 stories grouped into clusters of 4, 5, or 7 based on each role or project. Okay, I'm not understanding the clusters, but okay. Some kind
Subjective.
of clustering, but
Subjective.
yes, I
Just
don't understand what the clusters are for, but okay. However, many of these stories have share similar outcomes. For example, I developed a project from scratch, proposed the idea, learned new technologies, convinced leadership, and built the case. Okay. For different teams, each story focuses on different aspects such as learning new skills, managing priorities, or influencing executives, but all lead to the same results, the project's success. Okay. Widespread adoption, integrate. Right. So hang on. Stop. All right. I can go through this forever. Okay. So the first thing is each story focuses on a different aspect, such as learning new skills, managing priorities, or influencing executives. Okay. But let's just be clear. Each of your stories needs to focus on a leadership principle, not some random thing that you've decided you need to focus your story on. So I can see leadership principle equivalents to the things that you've said here, but I just want to be super clear. Your stories need to link to a leadership principle. So if it's learning new skills, then I'm going to link that to learn and be curious. If it's managing priorities, that's going to be deliver results. If it's influencing executives, then potentially that's earn trust. But be clear that your story needs to link to a specific leadership principle because they are looking for behaviors associated with those leadership principles specifically. Okay. All lead to the same result, the project success, widespread adoption, and integration into the company roadmap. I'm concerned that these shared contexts and outcomes may sound repetitive. Okay, so the outcomes are your results, and the results will be slightly different, I would hope, because the different solutions that you've built would have had different purposes, and those purposes would have then led to different outcomes. So your outcome can't just be it was adopted and it was successful. Your outcome needs to be it was adopted and used for this purpose, and the outcome of that purpose was X or Y. So the outcome of that final purpose should, I suspect, be slightly different depending on the things you've developed. And it's those impacts that you are trying to show as being the impact of your work. Am I making sense so far, Yevgeny, as I work my way through this?
Yeah, believe it or not, there's a question, a specific question
Is
that's
there a question
similar
all the
to
way at the
one of those
bottom?
questions.
Right.
No,
All
but
right.
I'm seconding everything that you're saying so
Okay,
far. I
most of
was
my
just
5 years of experience revolves around a few large multi-year projects, making it tough to create unique stories without overlap. Okay, interview is a lifetime opportunity. I'm finding it very difficult to find enough stories. Oh right, fine. Okay, my second question is was there a first question?
that was that was the
What was the
first question.
question though? What was the question? I gave you lots of answers, but I'm not sure what the question is. Okay, my second question is, can I use my entrepreneurial journey to provide examples? All right. So let me just go back to, you're saying that you have long projects that last like 6 months. I think that's 5 years, a few large multi-year projects. Okay, you can break your multi-year projects down. So long projects will always have multiple phases. There's often a development phase, then there's a scoping phase, and then there's an implementation phase, and then there's a kind of follow-up phase or wash-up phase. So you can break long multi-year projects into those different phases, and then they look like they're essentially different stories. Or if they have different work streams, you can break it down into different work streams. So again, often multi-year projects have finance work stream, IT work stream, marketing work stream, product development work stream, something work stream. You can break it down that way as well into multiple work streams. Okay. And then can you use your entrepreneurial journey? I always struggle to say that word. I'm not sure why. To provide examples, yes. If you are running a business, be it a business that you run or a business that you work for somebody else, both are equal fair game to use for your stories. Okay,
It
that's
keeps
it.
going.
Oh, is there more? Okay. Um,
Do you want me to do the rest?
Is that the last one there? AWS asked you to make a 20-minute presentation about a solution you built. Can I use stories linked to binding that solutions in the next behavioral questions interview? Right. Okay. I think what you mean is if you put a presentation together about a particular project, can you use that project when you're answering questions in the behavioral part? Yes. There we go. You've getting your
Well done.
turn.
Okay. Right. There we go. Okay, so I had my loop interview scheduled for this past Friday. However, my recruiter called me last Wednesday and told me the position was filled. Doesn't happen often. He said an L4 position opened up for the same team. And I said I would go through the interview. Seems like it's moving slow. What should I make of this? Should I be discouraged about what's happening? Um, so these things happen. Sometimes roles get filled before you manage to get yourself past the post, because that's how Amazon's interviewing system works. Whoever raises the bar first, whoever, and if that person was behind you, they have to make an offer to that person, which means that the role is filled, so the role is no longer open. Sometimes they would cancel your loop, and sometimes they might interview you. I guess in this case, it's probably a good thing that they interviewed you because no, sorry, that the actually no. So I think they didn't interview you. They canceled. They basically told you the role is no longer available and they can't proceed forward. So they did. So they did cancel your. Oh no, I'm mixing it
There are
up.
there are two different people that
Dude,
have got exactly the same experience
completely
who have
mixed
messaged.
this up.
Yeah,
Right, hang on a sec. Right, so Max Brooks, right. So the recruiter called, okay, the position was filled. Okay, fine. So they canceled your loop. So that's what they did. And they asked you to apply to a different role. So yes, okay. So your loop got canceled. These things happen. It's not a reflection on you when they tell you that the role's filled. They're not lying. When they are asking you to interview for a different role, they're actually doing you a service because they don't have to do it, but your recruiter is probably just thinks that you have a good relevant experience. So they're suggesting they interview for a different role. it's moving slowly in this occasion. It's not a reflection on you, or I guess there's no reason why it would be a reflection on you. There's 55 million different logistical things that are happening inside Amazon, squaring diaries, getting various things approved, which may slow down the scheduling of those interviews. It's absolutely okay for you to follow up, as long as you do it politely, and as long as don't do it every day, to see what's going on, and how things are progressing. But you should not feel discouraged at all the different strange things that might be happening while you're waiting for your interview to be scheduled, or in any other process within Amazon. This is actually not very strange, so don't be discouraged. Just follow up politely, and hopefully things will happen to you, and things will happen for you, and you will get your loop. Anything you'd add, Gigi?
Sorry, I got my mute on. No, nothing I would add. And in fact, Sijant, who you got
It's the
confused
same,
with,
isn't it?
is in a slightly similar position, but slightly different. So you had your final loop interview, but 4 days ago you got an email, the role is no longer available, and thus we are unable to proceed forward. Means someone else got selected, question mark. What are the chances they will reach out to me if there is a new job opening for the same position? Also, I still see the job posting as open on Amazon job portal. Am I rejected? Okay, so the role is no longer available. Does it necessarily mean someone else got selected? Um, it's possible that someone else got selected, or actually, it's also possible that they lost the budget. So it's more likely that someone else got selected, but it does happen where sometimes a decision is made to remove a particular rec and the budget is moved somewhere else or dissolved. So that's a possibility as well. What are the chances they'll reach out to you if there is a new job opening for the same position? No way of giving you any kind of empirical statistical data on that one. Um, the the theoretical probability changes depending on how actually you performed at your loop, because you said that you did actually have the final loop. So if you did really well, then those notes will exist on their ATS, which is called hire. And that makes you a really strong candidate for if someone else is out there looking for somebody else to do that type of role. If you didn't do so well, logically speaking, you're less likely, if someone else is out there hunting for someone to do that role, to get called up by that recruiter. But probabilities, etc., we cannot tell you, and no one will be able to tell you that. Um, so are you rejected? Puristically, yes. The role is no longer available and therefore you have been rejected from that role. Yes, I guess is the only answer I could say. But again, we don't know necessarily. It doesn't sound like you're rejected because they are not inclined to hire you. It sounds like you're rejected because either the role has been removed or someone else has got it before you.
Yep,
Would you like
makes
to pick
sense.
the next one, Yevgeny?
Okay, so hi Gigi and Evgeny. Does recycled status make it more likely that you will pop up at the head of likely candidates when recruiters are searching? The right answer for me is actually I don't know, because I've never seen the hire interface as a recruiter. My suspicion is that unlikely, but Gigi, do you know something that I
Yeah, you
don't?
don't pop up per se. So what they would do is they would mine hire for candidates. So there will be potential keywords that are in your resume that they would then search for through the hire ATS, and then pull up your resume, and then attached to your resume is obviously your profile, or the other way around. Actually, the resume is embedded within your profile, and then within their profile, your profile, they would be able to see that you have previously been interviewed by Amazon and the outcome of that interview. So you're not more likely to pop up per se because it's not some kind of automated thing. But once the once the recruiter identifies your profile, you then become a hotter prospect than someone who has never interviewed with Amazon before and they have no information on. Make sense?
Makes sense to me.
Okay, cool. Let me just pick the next one then from Sam. I had my interview on October the 11th, okay, 17 days ago, and you received a rejection after a week, okay. But to my knowledge, I've answered everything and gave solutions to technical questions as well, but I stammered a little. Could that be a reason? No, Sam. Your stammering will not have made any difference to the outcome. So, um, yes, you can answer everything, but that doesn't make it a great answer. So there's no just I answer the question, right? You provide your answer and they are looking for evidence of specific leadership principles. So they will have been listening to everything that you have to say to identify, are you demonstrating all of the behaviors, not all of them, but most of the behaviors that they're looking for in the leadership principles that they're testing. So although you may have answered the question, doesn't mean to say that your answer actually provides the depth and the richness of data that they were looking for associated with the leadership principles all they were looking for, or that your story reflect the complexity that they're looking for in terms of the scope and the complexity required to be able to fulfill that role, or that even if some of your answers did achieve that, that perhaps where they really needed those skills to be surfacing, perhaps your answers in that space weren't quite so strong. So it's not just as binary as I answered all the questions they asked me and I think I got all the technical stuff correct. There's a lot more nuance and complexity to that. And quite honestly, Sam, you will never know why because Amazon will not share feedback with you. So all you can do is really reflect on your performance. And if you genuinely think that I was perfect and I can't see why they would not hire me, if you still care about why they didn't hire, then maybe you could go and work with someone, maybe a coach, maybe a very experienced interviewer, and do some kind of mock interview with them. And maybe they could give you some feedback to provide you with a bit more insight about how they feel about your answers. Otherwise, I'm afraid, Sam, it's just a case of you got to move on because you will never know why exactly they decided not to hire you. And there's nothing you can do to control that. All you can do is just move on. So if you want to continue to apply for Amazon, then you need to have a think about, am I knowledgeable enough about the leadership principles? If I thought I did a great job and I didn't get hired, and if I'm not, can I do some more work on that, working with a coach, doing a course, etc., etc. If you don't want to interview with Amazon again, then move on. I think some things in life will always remain a mystery, Sam, I'm afraid.
True. Right.
Your turn.
Yep. Um, should the LP stories vary for interview with the team members versus bar raisers? Anything to separately showcase for the bar raiser LP answers? So the response is no, I would not vary anything and I wouldn't save your best for the bar raiser, which is what a lot of folks try to do. And the reason being is because your interviewers aren't meant to make a decision on whether to hire you or not on the spot. And even if they do so, there's always a debrief where there's voting involved. So everyone gathers together to discuss the candidates' responses. The debrief is conducted and led by the bar raiser. And during that debrief, folks will and have changed their minds about whether to make an offer or not. So, someone who initially voted inclined to hire you might vote otherwise, and vice versa. So, our recommendation is to maintain a consistent strength of your stories across the interview and not to save anything specific for the bar raiser. Anything you'd add, Gigi?
No, nope, nothing at all. Just treat everyone like the bar raiser, I think is the way to go.
Everyone is the bar raiser.
Okay, so Aju, does the interviewer really see my resume? Because I don't think they had resume. They were picking up questions from my LP answers because I don't think they had resume. All right. I don't really understand the because bit. So does the interviewer really see your resume? Well, the interviewer really has access to your resume. They are able to see your your resume. Does that mean that every single interviewer actually reads your resume? I'm afraid not. Now, obviously, I do, but I sat and shadowed a lot of people in my time at Amazon, and it's pretty clear to me that not all interviewers are reading resumes before they get into the room with candidates. So it is possible they hadn't read it, but yes, they definitely have access to it. I'm a little bit baffled by this next bit, Yevgeny. What do you think? Because I don't think they had the resume. They were picking up questions from my LP
I have a
answers. What do you
hypothesis.
think that means? Okay.
My hypothesis is that Aju is saying if they had my resume in front of them, why is it that they were asking me questions that weren't necessarily related to anything specific on my resume? As in, they were picking questions
Oh, right. Okay.
from
Oh,
a
there's a follow-up here.
bank.
So, how do you assess an interview in general? So, what are all the assessing points of behavioral questions? And for the technical questions, how do you come to conclusion? Okay, right. Got it. Yeah, you're right, Evgeny. So, um, so the behavioral interview piece is about your behaviors as a leader. That's why they're called leadership principles. So, what you've done experience wise in the past when it comes to leadership principles, it just provides context for you to then be able to demonstrate your leadership skills and strengths in the context of the leadership principles. So they don't need to ask you, oh, talk to me about the time where you launched this super whizzy gadget for X company, because they're not really interested in your launch of the super whizzy gadget of X company. They're interested in, do you demonstrate the leadership principles? So they're going to ask you a question, something along the lines of, tell me about a time where you made something more simple for a customer. And you might choose the project where you launched this super whizzy gadget thing for company X, because in that project, you were able to make something simpler for a customer. So the behavioral part of things is all about your leadership behaviors, and therefore they don't really care which project you speak about. They only really care about, does that project allow you to talk about the behaviors that you've demonstrated as per aligned with the leadership principles. So that's the first bit. Then you're asking us, what are the assessing points for a technical question? That entirely depends on the subject, on the skills area. So, how one assesses someone's technical response if they are a solutions architect and you've asked them to design some kind of a system is going to be very different to if you are interviewing a marketer and you've asked them to describe to you how they might set up some kind of A/B or multivariant test. The criteria for assessing those two things are fundamentally different. So I can't answer that second part of your question. And even if you tell me the job family, by the way, that you're in the hope that I would be able to answer that question, I can't, because per at the start of the session, I am not a functional expert in all of the many thousands of different job families across Amazon, I'm afraid. But hopefully that at least makes clearer to you why, for the behavioral side of things, they weren't asking you specifically about projects or companies that you've worked for. They were asking you specifically about the leadership principles, and then it's up to you to decide which project or which company to bring forward to demonstrate that leadership principle. Does that all make sense, Yevgeny?
It makes total sense. It makes total sense. Um, my next question is to you. Should we do the break? Should we do some entertainment?
Wow! Is it that time already?
Yeah, I think
Doesn't
so.
time fly when you're having fun? Okay, sure. Let's do that. So, folks, we're just going to pause very briefly here and ask you for a favor. As a very teeny tiny favor that will take you no more than 5 seconds, I would say. So, Yevgeny and I obviously work very hard to build out this enormous channel and also the blog that maybe some of you have come across, blog.day1.careers, where there's just tons of advice about the Amazon interview process, which you would know by now. We ask very little, and in fact, almost nothing in return for that. No, we ask nothing in return for that because it's all free. But what we would really appreciate from you is here on YouTube, if ever you watch a piece of our content or watch the stream, that you give it a thumbs up, a like, or you drop a little comment. I don't know why. Yeah, Is it any of this working at all? No, it's not. Drop a comment, drop a like. What that does is it tells yours is working. Excellent. It tells YouTube that the content that they have served to you was the right content for you and it's content that you like. What that then does is it boosts Day One Careers content in the algorithm. And it means people who are looking for accurate, specific, and not misleading content about Amazon interviewing will be able to find our content much more easily. So, in the next 30 seconds, I'm going to play a little bit of video with some amusing dancing and singing in it. And in that time, I would really appreciate you if you could just give this particular stream a thumbs up. I can see how many people have done that on the left-hand screen here. So I shall be a little bit disappointed if after the VT, we have no change in that number. So very briefly, if you please would just give us a thumbs up and like this stream. This might be a little bit loud, so if you've got headphones on like me, just kind of push them ever so slightly back in your ears so that you don't get deafened. And here we go. Give it a like.
Please like the stream now. Please like the stream now. Please like the stream now. Please like the stream. 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 Like the stream.
Right, there we go, folks. Come on, you can do better than that. I think we've had just two extra.
Oh, come
So
on,
please,
guys.
folks, give it a like. And if you didn't realize, folks, all of that singing, every single one of those altos, tenors, basses, whatever it was me. That was me singing.
Multi-talented.
Yeah, yeah. And mixing. Honestly, my editing skills, fabulous. Right, folks, but seriously, if you please would either like this stream or whenever you watch any of our other videos, drop it a thumbs up, ask a question, put a comment in, anything like that, and it will just help boost the channel for everybody
Yeah.
else.
One like is roughly 10 extra views, folks, for people who just get the authoritative information about Amazon interviews. I think it's my
It
turn,
is
isn't
your turn, yes.
it? Okay, cool. Right. Shri, I'm gonna skip your question because I don't know the answers to your question. Gigi, feel free to come back to Shri's question if you know any of this, but I'm gonna go to Karen. And so Karen says, I have a video interview on the 30th for the process control specialist and logistics analyst position at the Tilbury Fulfillment Center. I recently finished my master's in logistics and supply chain management at Nottingham and have 7 months of experience. Is it acceptable to use academic stories for the interview? So yes, it is acceptable to use academic stories for the interview. And again, I don't know what your career/tenure is in the industry before you went for your master's, whether you actually worked anywhere. But if you did, and if you imagine kind of rewinding 5 years from the time from your interview, so anything that happened within those 5 years, pre-master's work experience, your master's degree, you can use. In fact, if you had some significant tenure before your master's degree, I would actually even I wouldn't have a problem if you use something even earlier than that. The only caveat for what you call academic examples is try to look for examples in situations where it wasn't just you versus the textbook or the course material. Look for situations where you collaborated with other people, whether it was on something project related, which was part of your course curriculum, or any extracurricular activities, societies, clubs, anything like that, where you can actually demonstrate leadership and impact on entities other than yourself. So that would be the only guidance that I have. Gigi, do you have any other bits of wisdom here?
I guess the one other thing that I've noticed when I'm coaching people and they're using academic stories is it's often quite hard to really understand why that thing matters. Why was this thing important? Um, it's really valuable to make it clear to your interviewer that this thing that you're describing is something of significance. Amazon wants to hire people that can do significant things and have significant impact on significant things, if that makes sense. So, if you are going to use academic stories, make sure it's clear to the interviewer just why this thing was so important for you to resolve, whether it makes a significant contribution to your final mark, whether it was something that was intended to drive, if it's a club or something like that, drive significant revenue for some charity. I don't know. But do be careful when you're using academic stories to make sure you make it clear why this thing matters. Okay, so Sri, let's just pull this one up, go back to this one. Um, so AWS architect in your interview panel, him to can I expect him to ask coding questions for an SWE1 role? And can he ask AWS questions? So there's actually a video on the YouTube channel already that is specific to software development engineers and what you can expect at your interview. So I would really recommend you go and find that. I would absolutely expect somebody to be testing an SW or an SE. I think it's an SDE1 rather than SWE. So an SDE1, I would absolutely expect someone to be testing you on coding skills, whether it's this AWS architect or somebody else in the panel. I don't know, but someone's going to be testing you. And are they going to ask you AWS questions? Well, again, can't say for sure, but if you're going to join a business, it's definitely worth understanding at least some fundamentals about what their service offering is. So do a little bit of homework on some of the most foundational. Obviously, I know AWS offers a bazillion, squillion different products, but at least do a little bit of homework on some of the most basic principles of AWS and what the AWS service offering is. Even if they're just saying, "What do you know about AWS?" The worst thing would be to be saying, "Oh, I don't know. I haven't really looked into it." At least you'd have something to say if you did some basic research. But definitely go and have a look at that video on the channel, which is about software development engineers, and that should be quite helpful in terms of the specifics.
Cool. Should I take the next one?
Sure.
Hi. If I had been interviewed in the past 5 years ago for an Amazon position, should I say so in the actual process? I'm gonna say, if they ask you if there are any questions that they may ask because they somehow saw that you were interviewed by Amazon 5 years ago, then answer their questions. But otherwise, I wouldn't bring it up proactively. Not because there's anything to hide, because it's in the system. They would know that you would have interviewed, but it's just you see, your interview with Amazon, it's a very as a matter of fact interaction. They ask you questions based on what they need to get out of you, whether it's something on the functional or technical side or on the behavioral side. And if asking you a question about you interviewing with them 5 years ago is somehow relevant to that, then answer the question. But otherwise, I wouldn't proactively bring it up. I just don't see how this is at all relevant. I mean, there's plenty of folks who go to interview with Amazon with 2, 3, 4 previous attempts. I mean, for a hiring manager or an interviewer, I mean, to be honest, it doesn't really matter. Unless there's something crazy that happened during that interview, something very unusual. But if it was just a normal interview and normal rejection, I wouldn't sweat about it at all.
I agree. I wouldn't mention it. So Max, as a follow-up, do L4 positions still receive relocation benefits? That's going to be crucial for me to move from Southeast Florida up to New York, and I'm nervous the level down in position will eliminate that. 1 out of 2, much needed benefit. 2 out of 2. Okay, so the best person to ask is your recruiter, Max. Find out whether they're offering relocation. Now, I have to say, from my experience, and it was a few years ago now, but my team would not do relocation packages for L4s. On a rare occasion, they would do them for L5s, and they were almost always available for L6s. But that was my team in Europe a number of years ago, yada, yada. the policy for the team that you're applying for might be different, but the only person that can answer that for you is going to be the recruiter. So I suggest if that's critical for you, and if they can't offer you relocation, then you won't possibly consider the job, then you should probably find that out sooner rather than later, and avoid wasting your time and theirs if you can't actually take the job.
Cool.
Okay, do you want to pick the next one?
Yep. So I have an upcoming loop with Amazon for L5 Solutions Architect position with 5 different Amazonians. How should I prepare for it other than covering leadership principles? Um, mm, um, I mean, so your interview process will likely contain non-technical and technical/functional elements of the assessment. So on the functional elements of the assessment, the best bet is to ask your recruiter to see what type of functional questions and or assessments you would have to do for a solutions architect role. They will tell you, and that should guide your preparation. For the non-technical part, you mentioned covering the leadership principles. So specifically, make sure that you have an idea on what leadership principles they're going to interview you on. There's video in our YouTube channel on how you can extract that information from your job description. If you can't, you can book Gigi. She has a paid service where she will do this for you. Now, when you know the leadership principles that you are likely to be interviewed on, you need to prepare 2 stories for every leadership principle. So try to understand what those leadership principles are, and then query your memory and try to pull out stories where you demonstrate those behaviors. And then on top of that, um, that's pretty much it. Things like why Amazon and tell me about yourself. When you're going to the loop, which is your panel with 5 different interviewers, they don't really count anymore for on your assessment. So just treat them as a warm up. Perhaps think about what you want to ask your interviewers. So that's a good thing to think about, because if you don't have any questions to ask now, that might raise some red flags. But otherwise, there's nothing I can think of. Gigi, is there anything that you can think of?
Well, I guess the solution design piece, if you're applying to be a solutions architect, I'm going to assume that someone's going to be testing you for your functional skills. So you might want to do some preparation to make sure that you're capable of answering questions on solutions design. And there is a website, well, what's that place where quite a few of our solutions architects, the service that they quite enjoy, is it Grokking or something like that?
Do you mean system design or
Oh,
solutions
system
design?
design.
These
Yeah,
are different
system
things.
design. Yeah, systems design.
For system design, that would be the grokking the system design interview.
There we go. There you go. So that's the only other thing I can think of that lots of our solutions architect candidates have used. Okay, right. Oh, this is an interesting one. Krishnan, okay, you have your loop next week. With buzz of Amazon flattening its managerial structure with possible layoffs, should I be concerned about joining? Well, I mean, we've all got our own opinion on that, and there's nothing that I can share with you that's factual. It's just my own speculative point of view. So obviously there's a whole bunch of people out there saying it's just a way of creating a whole bunch of additional layoffs so that they don't have to do any more layoffs. I don't think that that's correct. I don't think Amazon was particularly embarrassed or shy about coming forward with the last lots of layoffs. So why they would then try and do some under the radar layoffs at this point, I'm not really convinced. So I don't think they're layoffs. I kind of buy into the fact that they've realized that they now have way too many management layers, and it's probably becoming a far, far heavier red tape admin type organization than it was when Yevgeny and I were there. So flattening its managerial structure, should you be concerned about joining? I guess it just depends on where you want your career to go. If they're flattening their managerial structure, that means there's going to be less slots available, I suppose, at the levels above. It's going to be much harder to convince anyone that you should be promoted to L7 if they're trying to minimize the number of L7s. But essentially, it's all just speculation at the end of the day. And my point of view would be, do you like the sound of the work? Are they going to pay you the type of money that you want to be paid? Do you think that they can, or you could be happy in that job for whatever length of time it is that you're looking to be in that job? If the answer to those things are yes, then you should go for it. What layoffs may come, who knows? I don't think this is an excuse for layoffs personally, but what layoffs may come, who knows? But what layoffs may come in Microsoft, Google, or any other blooming organization that I'm seeing layoffs appear in every single day, I think the probability is probably about the same. But that's just my personal speculative point of view. There's no data behind that, so take it with whatever grain of salt you want to. Evgeny, have you got thoughts on that?
Nope, nothing that you can control. The only
Right.
thing I would say is if I were if I were posting a job right now for a managerial role in these conditions, I would not be posting a job that I have a slightest fear that would be axed in a restructure. That would be me. But the bottom line for me is nothing that you can control. So
Yeah, I mean, I take the point. You don't want to leave a good job and join Amazon only to discover that you're not even going to be laid off, because this isn't about layoffs, but it's about managerial flattening. So I understand the concern, but I don't think anyone's going to be able to give you insight that will satisfy you and help you to an answer.
true. Okay. Right. If we had a bad loop, will that be registered forever in this system? I don't know about forever. Is it like a long? It's a big definition, forever. But for your intents and purposes, yes, it will sit there. Whether it's something that you should be overly concerned about if you were to re-interview after a rejection, no. That's all. I haven't got anything. Do you have anything else to add, Gigi?
No, and I'm not sure anyone would know it was a bad loop, because the actual content of the notes are quite abstracted. So recruiters might be able to see the detail of the feedback. I'm not even sure at this stage. So Yevgeny's usual advice, there's nothing you can do about it. So can't control it, so ignore it, basically. All right, AJ. Does a gap in your work experience due to layoff make it difficult to consider a candidate? Can they ask that, and how should I answer it positively? I don't think it makes it difficult to consider a candidate these days. I mean, I think I would have felt a little bit differently about this 4 or 5 years ago, but given everyone has been, so many organizations have been through so many mass layoffs, and fantastic people with amazing skills have been laid off by virtue of the fact that it was simply a numbers game rather than a layoff that was focused on bottom performers. So I don't think it has as much impact these days as it might have done in the past. Can they ask? Of course, they can ask. In fact, you're probably better off to put some kind of note about it in your resume anyway, rather than have a resume that just looks like a gap and no one understands why. And how could you answer it positively? So, the concerns that people generally have when there is a gap in someone's resume is less about the fact that there's a gap and more really about skills erosion. So, if they're asking you about, okay, what's this gap in your resume? And you have to tell them, okay, I was part of a mass layoff at my previous company. They let 15-20% of the workforce go, and I was unlucky enough to be part of that. You then have to go on and say, but during my period of unemployment, I wanted to make sure that I maintained my skills. So I did this and I did that and I did that. And as long as you can demonstrate that there's no risk from their point of view around skills erosion, you should probably be mitigating the concern that they would have about career gap. Anything you'd add, Evgeny?
No, no, I wouldn't add anything else. Okay. How and when do I approach negotiating for a relocation allowance? I'm about to go through the loop. Well, um, usually when it comes to compensation and benefits, and the relocation allowance being one such benefit, you have 2 points at which typically you get to have a conversation with the recruiter about those. This is before they start interviewing you. This is when they try to canvas whether what they're offering is actually something that you would broadly be in line of accepting, and then after they make an offer. So it sounds like you're kind of in between right now. You're going into your loop, um, and then you will or will not have an offer. So I would say it's probably at the end of your loop. If your outcome is successful, if the offer is there, then this is the time when you negotiate. Anything? Would you have a different opinion here, Gigi?
No, no different opinion. Okay, Metaverse Mind. I'm sure Metaverse Mind was here last week. I think I recognize the alliteration. So, hey, me. Hi. Thank you very much for all of your incredible support. You're welcome. I'm thrilled to share that you've received an offer from Amazon for a cloud support engineer role. Woo! While I'm excited, there's like caveat. While I'm excited, I'd love your advice. Okay, we're on one of four here. Okay. How to approach negotiating this offer for the best possible outcome. I want to present my case thoughtfully and include my years of experience and skills I've developed. I've done some market research comparing salaries. Good. Okay. That was going to be my first point. So, okay. And want to base my negotiations on it. Yep. I'm unsure if there's anything I'm missing in terms of strategy or specific points to highlight. Okay. Ah, our channel has been your go-to things for all Amazon and appreciate any advice on how to package my answer on a fair and competitive offer. I'm going to hand this one over to Yevgeny because compensation negotiation is Yevgeny's favorite thing. So there you go. I'm throwing you under the bus, Yevgeny. You want to go? You weren't listening, were you? I could tell you weren't
I was I
listening.
was already scoping the next question, but that's fine. Right.
It's
Okay.
it's a
So you
question
wanted.
about, yeah, salary negotiation. Metaverse has done their homework in terms of making sure she understands baseline compensation, but she wants to know if there's anything else that she should be considering as part of the negotiation in terms of her skills, years of experience, blah blah blah.
Yeah. So, so first things first, in terms of trying to correct the usual asymmetry of information, right, that exists between you and the employer, you've done some of this, so some market research, that's good. Comparing salaries, that's also good. The other thing that you can do to correct asymmetry of information is to see what kind of offers Amazon has made for similar roles in the same location, because all of the offers that Amazon will make, they're always location specific. Where do you find this information? Go to places like Fishbowl, which is a professional social network, LinkedIn, conversations on LinkedIn when people are posting about them being accepted, and some of them post about salaries. And lastly, but not least, the anonymous professional social network called Blind, and the website is teamblind.com. So it used to be quite weighed towards engineers in the Bay Area who were discussing various work related things, but it has since broadened quite handsomely to include various non technical jobs. So if your job family isn't super obscure and super niche, you should be able to find folks discussing whether they were offered a decent offer or not so decent offer. If you feel comfortable, you can also completely anonymously post your offer details there and see what folks tell you, how well it compares to the offers that they have seen being given. So that's another data point for you. And then with regards to using your personal situation as an argument in your negotiations, anything that I guess decreases the urgency on your part to take the job is a good thing. So things like you are about to get promoted, you are about to have a chunky salary increase, or you're sitting on a pile of unvested stock, or you have a bonus that you know for sure is going to come in about 2 months. Anything like this, anything that decreases the urgency on your part to take that job, or you have a competing offer coming through because you're interviewing with another company, that all of that is really, really good to layer. With regards to years of experience and how well you've done, this is the one that I have seen candidates try to use, but I haven't seen much success because presumably all your years of experience and everything else is something that have earned you the actual interview with Amazon,
Mm, mm-hmm.
and they have presumably valued everything that you've got to to bring, because they are interviewing you against a specific level and a bar within that level. So just because they're making you that offer, that actually means that they've taken all of this into account. The only time when your the argument that you have too much experience for a particular job comes into place is not in salary negotiations, but in leveling conversations. But these conversations are extremely rare, because most jobs are single level. They're not level flexible. So they're not gonna just look at your I guess your email where you summarize all the good things that are going about your experience, and then think, ooh, we need to up level this candidate in order to give them a massive jump on compensation. So I would say probably not years of experience and all that stuff, but anything that reduces your urgency to take the job, that's probably more useful. Anything you'd add, Gigi?
No, I agree entirely. I think those other aspects like years of experience, skills that you have, qualifications you have, it's all already baked into the offer. Okay. Um, here's one. Felixander, I have a phone interview coming up to be a marketing manager. I'm not sure what technical questions they could ask me. Neither am I. There's no way for us to know that. Um, there are lots of different types of marketing roles as well. So the person you need to ask is your recruiter. So go back to your recruiter and ask them if they can give you any more additional insight into what specifically they are going to be asking you for. So I'm just going to take the next one because that was super quick, Evgeny. Ah, is the phone interview feedback also taken into consideration during the debrief, or is the phone interview just for filtering candidates? Okay, so the phone interview's primary purpose is just for filtering candidates, and it isn't, as a matter of course, used as a data input into the debrief. However, sometimes if there is some doubt in the debrief about a particular aspect of your performance, be it a particular leadership principle, be it impact, etc., the hiring manager and the bar raiser have access to the phone interview notes and they can always refer back to them. So, as a matter of course, no, but are they available if the team need them for extra data? Yes. Do you want to pick the next one, Evgeny?
Yeah.
Oh, we've got 2 minutes left. I think this is going to be the last one.
Okay, cool. There is no salary data in my country on Amazon Salary. This is a very new market, launched in 2024. How do I negotiate a reasonable salary? I don't want to overprice myself. Also, well, look, if you're going completely blind when it comes to any indication of how Amazon is pricing these jobs in your market, there are a couple of things I can think about. Number one is, so Amazon tries to, what they typically try to do is they take a specific job family, like say like a software developer. Then within that job family, chunk it into various different levels of seniority, right? Roughly, very roughly by years of experience, right? And then within that chunk, they try to see what is the distribution curve of different compensation packages that are typically paid out, and then aim for with the total compensation for the top bracket. Yeah, and it doesn't matter what it is, right? Because again, you're flying blind. So if I needed to work out what that appropriate salary kind of range should be, or not salary, but total compensation for which I should be shooting, what I would do is I would say, for example, if you're interviewing for software development engineer or software engineer, let's say it's an L4 software engineer, so let's say up to 3 years post graduation, then I would say take take the distribution range of salaries for software engineer that with a similar tenure, or a junior software engineer or something like that, and just build them in an Excel sheet and take, I don't know, the top 25-30%, so like that top bit, and I would aim there. So that's what I would do. The second thing is it's more of a mindset trick. So you're saying you don't want to overprice yourself. Well, don't worry about it. Don't worry about overpricing yourself. If you overprice yourself above what they can offer, they'll correct you. They're not going to take the job away from you.
Mhm.
That's all I have. Anything you'd add?
No, that's really, really wise words, Yevgeny. Really wise words. So I'm just going to pick one more because someone's a bit confused, and I just want to see if I can help clarify, and then we'll do the freebies. So, folks, don't go because you'll be sorry if you do. I tell you this. Right. So, C got a note from HR. I'm pleased to share that the outcome appears to be very positive. The feedback from the team indicates a strong inclination towards moving forward. Okay. Does this mean yes, it's a bit vague, uncommitted? Yes, it is vague and uncommitted. And my guess reading this is that your recruiter has been a little bit cheeky and they've read the notes. They've seen that everybody, I reckon debrief has not happened yet. I reckon they've read the notes. They've seen that everybody is inclined because each person gets their own individual notes. And it's very rare that you would go into a debrief with an all inclined loop and the candidate not to end up being offered the role. That said, that has happened to me twice where we went from all inclined to a not inclined outcome. And I won't bore you with the details, but it's not impossible. So actually, I have to say, I think it's a little bit unfair of your recruiter to have done that because they don't yet know, assuming my interpretation is correct. I'm reading between the lines here, so I may be incorrect. But if that is the case and the debrief has not yet happened, I personally am not overly thrilled at the idea of a recruiter telling you that all the signals are great when actually they don't actually know the outcome of the debrief. This is my hypothesis, right? So this is not fact, but I would not take that particular snippet from your recruiter's email as a yes, you're going to get an offer. What you want to hear from the recruiter is the debrief is complete and we are inclined. I will get back to you in X many days with our offer. That's the thing that will tell you whether you've got the job or not. So I'm sorry I can't say, yeah, you got the job. I'm sure the indications are good. And it's unlikely if it's an all inclined loop that you're not going to get hired. But at the same time, there's no 100% guarantees in these games. Okay, so folks, I forgot to put on all of the banners earlier. So shame on me. Right. So go to this link here for a bunch of incredible stuff. I will rattle through what this incredible stuff is, and then we can all go off and have our, well, we'll go off and have our dinner. I don't know about the rest of you. Right. So at the end of this link, you will find, firstly, a list of what we call plausible Amazon interview questions. It is super helpful to be able to practice with real, or at least plausibly real questions ahead of your interview. We cannot give you the exact Amazon interview questions. We don't know them, and it would be against our contracts, even though we don't work for them anymore, if we were to do that. But because we know the Amazon interview process so well and we know what the interviewers are looking for, we have created our own list of very plausible interview questions that are great for practice. So you can go and download those absolutely free. The next thing at the end of that free link is a little free sample of our amazing Amazon Interview Success System digital course. Our course focuses on giving you a whole bunch of context about Amazon and the organization of Amazon and how they work and their culture and blah, blah, blah. And also then a step-by-step guide as to how to create your Amazon interview stories from zero all the way through to having a fully reviewed, beautiful, well-prepared and crafted story that you can practice and flex around with, etc., etc. This particular freebie that we're giving you is very much focused on the customer obsession leadership principle. Most people will be tested on customer obsession. It walks you through our learning model for the leadership principles. The leadership principles have different flavors. We call them facets. And you can find all that in that customer obsession little taster course. It tells you exactly what the interviewer is looking for when it comes to your customer obsession answer. And there's a little mock interview of me interviewing me just so you can see how it might come together. Take that. It's super, super useful because I am almost certain if you make it all the way through to loop, you will be tested on customer obsession. And then the final thing that you get at the end of that link, if you take out either of those two things, is access to our Heartbeat community. There are over 5,500 people who are members of that community. Not all are currently interviewing for Amazon, but many are, and you can buddy up and have little mock interview sessions with other people interviewing currently at Amazon. We also have an amazing ChatGPT model in there that we have trained on all of the contents of the YouTube channel. So if you don't want to spend time trawling through the fabulous videos on the YouTube channel, you can just ask that ChatGPT model the question, and if it's on the YouTube channel, Andy, who is the model, will answer that question back for you. And I think that's it, folks. Have I missed anything? No, great. Okay, so please do go take those things out, totally free, and you've nothing to lose by taking them out. If you have an interview coming up, we have our fingers very tightly crossed. If I didn't get to answer your question for you, you can always drop it into the YouTube channel itself, and Yevgeny or I will come back to you with an answer ASAP. Thank you very much for joining, and we will be here next week, an hour earlier for those of you who are in US, because your daylight savings will have kicked in. Or not, as the case may be. All right. Goodbye, folks. Take care. Have a safe week.
Bye, everyone. Have a good
Bye.
week.